What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics, where I share my passion and over 40 years of experience comic book collecting, investing, and conservation with you. Today, we're going to be starting a new conservation project on this copy of All-Star Comics number 55. We're going to perform our evaluation and develop our conservation plan for this Golden Age beauty. Thank you for joining me today for what should be the beginning of an exciting new project for the channel. Let's jump right into our evaluation, and then we'll circle back to historical context, potential market value, and the place of this comic book in my collection. Today we're going to perform an assessment of this comic book, which is the first step in our conservation process. If you want to learn more about my 9-step process for comic book conservation, I'll provide a link to the primer video so you can review the entire process and what steps need to be performed, when you can combine steps, and when you can skip some steps. For the rest of this video, I'm going to assume you're already familiar with that process. Firstly, of course, before you handle your comic books, make sure you have clean and dry hands. First impression is this book actually looks pretty nice. It presents reasonably well. It's got good color. It seems to be intact. It's got some gloss. Colors are nice and vibrant. It does have some problems. Obviously I did buy it raw. Bought it from the original owner, if you can believe that, a few years back. The most obvious flaw, just looking at the front cover, is this right edge, the leading edge. It's really frayed up. You can see we have a few pieces of paper that have been folded over, so they appear to be missing when you view it from the outside. I don't want to open the cover all the way up because if you look here, the staples are essentially on top of the book right now, and that'll cause a crease if I open that cover up too harshly. So in situations like this, I like to often look at the book from the back. And now you see one of the major flaws of the book. It's got a very severe spine roll here, and that's why the staples are on top of the book rather than on the spine. It's also got some significant tanning. You see a tan line there, which we call a dust shadow. It's got a piece missing right here, at least appears to be missing. Maybe it's a flap that's folded over somewhere. We'll investigate that later. If we look at the color chart here for the paper, it's pretty dark, especially on this edge right here. Along the edge, it's off-white to cream. And on this very top edge, I would say it's tending tan. And along the bottom edge, similarly, at the edge where the most oxidation occurs, it's clearly tan. And this is the back cover. Remember, that paper guide is actually supposed to be for interior pages, but we can obviously use it for the back cover as well. So unfortunately, it looks like that piece of paper is missing. It's not been folded over in a way that maybe we could recover it and repair it. Otherwise, back cover looks fine. Let's check out the interior pages here. Interior pages, for the most part, look nice. Paper quality is going to be cream, maybe tan, but probably off-white to cream. Off-white in the center of the book, cream on the edges. There's an ink transfer here between these two pages, and it's just in that one spot, so makes me think either pressure or possibly a fluid spill would cause those kinds of transfers. We have the same transfer on that page, and we have the same transfer on this page, all in the same area. This is the backup story, so the JSA are not in it. Of course, remember, we're reading from the back forward. Here's the same transfer, again in that same area. As we move forward, we'll see if that continues throughout the book. This actually looks to me sort of like a pressure transfer. Like maybe there was some pressure on the back cover that transferred this ink on these pages. Here you see that transfer really well. It's almost like the old silly putty transfers. But otherwise these pages look great. No tears, no fraying to speak of, and feels like good paper quality, supple. Here we are to the last page, the conclusion page of the All-Star story. Number 55 is very close to the end of the run. The All-Star Golden Age run finished with number 57. The story outline and structure is a little different by this point in time. This is 1950, so All-Star Comics has already been around for a decade. Gardner Fox isn't writing it anymore. This is scripted by John Broome. And it's taken on a what would be a more modern story style, where it isn't broken down into chapters in the same way, and we don't have one chapter for every one of the. Here you see this page has been folded at the printer a little bit off, and the bottom edge is not trimmed the same, and the top edge is very tight. You see that it's at a bit of an angle relative to the rest of the book. Just that one wrap, it looks like. So this is more of a modern storytelling style, where there's one long story. Here's a printer's crease, for those of you that aren't sure what those are. This is also one of the rarer issues of All-Star Comics. Here's the centerfold. You see the top staple has been pulled through the centerfold. Bottom staple looks great. Really looks amazing, actually, for how old this book is. And no rust on it. And that those ink transfers are gone after the first half dozen pages from the back. So since we have no rust, there you can see the staple. So the staple goes through all of the pages except the centerfold. The centerfold's been pulled off of it. We can decide what to do with that later. But for now, we're just kind of doing our evaluation and noting the condition of the book. So again, the Golden Age is about to end. This is a very sci-fi oriented story. Some would call this the Atomic Age, actually. It's well post-war. World War II is 5 years over by now. Comic books have been around for over a decade. And they've changed a little bit with American sensibilities, and they've just matured a bit as an art form and as a commercial product. You see the panel layout here is a bit different than we saw in the earlier Golden Age. Also, this main story here, the entire thing is penciled by Frank Giacoia, rather than having all the chapters with the individual heroes and their regular pencilers from their regular titles, whether they're in anthology titles or their own. Instead, we've gone in favor of what is, again, a more modern way of storytelling, which is Frank Giacoia pencils the entire story here. The cover is by Art Petty, and we do have another artist on the backup story, which I think also is Art Petty. I'll be careful here with flipping these pages because, again, that staple is right on top at this point, and the paper's bent. I don't want to cause any stress here. But again, nice color, supple paper. We do have a tiny tear in these last 3 pages in that reading edge, which are in fact the first 3 pages, but very small, less than a 1/4 inch on this first page and then smaller on the second and third page. The inside of the cover, though, is severely tanned. Look how dark this is. Unfortunately, I was off camera there, but you can see this edge is tan, and that bottom section is even darker. It borders on brown. Where the indicia is there, you can see it. So we have a little bit of work to do. The main flaws we'll go over. I'm still looking at this little flap, hoping maybe there's something bent under. Unfortunately, no. That paper's missing. Good news is it's not missing around the staple. So structurally, that's a little better for us. As far as flaws go, overall this is a solid, mostly complete book, but one with some significant flaws. It has a very severe spine roll, which has resulted in some chipping along the right edge of the front cover. There's been some loss of paper along that edge where some of those chips are missing. If we correct the spine roll, the problems on the right edge will, ironically, likely become more obvious. Neither the front nor back cover has any significant soiling, which is a nice upside, and the cover does retain very good ink brightness and some gloss. The cover is also severely tanned to the point of being brown on some of the edges, which received the most oxidative stress over the years. From the back, you can see just how severe the spine roll is and how bad the cover tanning is. The piece of paper missing from the cover at the spine is most visible from the back. Dimensionally, it's approximately 1 centimeter by 2 centimeters, and when we correct the spine roll, it's possible some of that will be visible by the front. Fortunately for us, the interior wraps are in great shape, with the only flaws to mention being tiny tears on the reading edge of the first 3 wraps, a pulled top staple of the centerfold, and the mild ink transfer on the last few wraps of the comic book. The darkest parts of the exterior of the back cover are also really dark tan to brown in color. Overall, I'd grade this book at approximately good, very good, or a 3.0 on the 10-point scale. As I mentioned briefly during the walkthrough, this is a relatively scarce issue of All-Star Comics, with only 36 universal copies in the CGC census, with 5 restored, 2 qualified, and 0 conserved copies in the census today. I think we should set out to change that. We could just correct this spine roll with traditional pressing techniques and call it a day. But if we did that, we would still have severely tanned and possibly brittle pages that would hold the grade back. We would also still have a detached centerfold and some frayed edges on the cover that could invite further physical deterioration. I think this comic book deserves preservation, so I'm going to perform a full conservation. After we finish our assessment and documentation, we're going to start with disassembly of the comic book, then wet clean and deacidification of the cover with some tear seals and paper reinforcement with archival Japanese paper. I'm leaning toward the same wet clean of all the interior wraps as well. This will be tedious and time consuming, but will allow us to correct the tear at the top staple of the centerfold and clean, brighten, and deacidify the interior wraps to hopefully match our newly cleaned exterior wrap. After we get everything cleaned, mended, and dried back out, we'll reassemble the book without a spine roll and give it a good finishing press. What can we expect when this process is complete? The book is still going to be missing the piece of cover along the spine and the back, as well as the chips from the right edge of the front cover. But if we've done our work well, it will retain nice vibrant inks, which should present better against a brighter, whiter background. And we will have removed the severe spine roll and given the paper a new lease on life. Frankly, we probably aren't going to be eligible for a big grade bump here because of the missing paper in the cover. Perhaps this book is a conserved 4.0 when we're done, but even that is not guaranteed, nor is it without risks. Regardless, I think it's the correct path with this book. I don't have another copy of this issue of All Star Comics in my personal collection, so this is a copy that, if I get it graded, can slot into my CGC registry collection. I also don't have a lot to lose. I purchased this copy from the original owner, sight unseen, based solely off the seller's description for a little over $150 plus shipping and taxes a few years back. By conserving this comic book, we'll be preserving this beauty and protecting it against future degradation. So for me, this is an easy decision and a project I'm really looking forward to. I sincerely appreciate you joining me today for this kickoff video for a new conservation project. Look forward to the next steps in upcoming videos. If you enjoyed this video, please take a few seconds to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Until next time, take care of one another.